I think most INFJs are so highly anxious, and that's the way we use the J to self-soothe our anxiety by bringing in the planning and organization. And the going with the flow, it's not that like we're actually that whimsical or that we're that spontaneous like an INFP where we're like, oh, there's so many different options. Let me just dance around with all of them. No, it's that we're trying to keep the harmony. On our own, we have definite preferences. When you introduce a second person into it, we will chameleon to make them happy. And I think a lot of INFJs feel bad about that. Like, we feel weird that we're such chameleons, but that is the way we are wired. That is the way we are most ourselves, is to preserve harmony.
Hi there, this is Sarah Kuhn. If you are an INFJ or in a relationship with an INFJ or related to an INFJ in any way, and you want to figure out how they operate, what makes them tick, and how to communicate with them better, this is the show for you. It's called The Quiet Ones. This is a show that deconstructs INFJs, what they are, how they think, how they feel, how they operate, and how they relate to people with other personality types. Whether you have just found out that you're an INFJ or have known for a number of years, there is something for everyone. You will learn more about your personality type so that you understand who you are and understand how you operate in the workplace, in relationships, in your family, and with friends. I want you to walk away from every episode feeling like you have a place of belonging, feeling like you are no longer alone, feeling like you have a place to be heard and seen and understood as you really are. This is a place to connect with other INFJs, to learn and grow and really thrive. I want to give you inspiration and real life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to live your best life every single day. Though INFJs are very rare, you are not alone in this world. You are not the only one who thinks the way that you do and feels the way that you do. Hear from real INFJs just like you. Hi there, I'm Sarah Kuhn. Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Ones. I'm so glad that you're here today. I have an amazing guest and I cannot wait for you to hear this interview. Just real quick before that, I wanted to let you guys know that my book is out today. I'm so excited about that. I've been working so hard on it. It's called the INFJ User Guide. And if you haven't ordered a copy of it yet, please go and get one. You can find it on my website, infjwoman.com. All of the details are there. If you pre-ordered a book, make sure that you check your email. There is instructions there for you to receive your copy. Also make sure that you check your spam folder because sometimes those emails get stuck in the spam folder. If you didn't get an email and you did pre-order the book, please let me know. I will be more than happy to make sure that you get it because I want everybody to have a copy. This book has been, it's been a struggle writing it, but it's been an amazing experience, a huge learning experience. I've learned so much about the process of writing a book and also myself and my personality through this. So I really hope that you grab a copy of it. Also, check out my blog, infjwoman.com. One of the chapters is up on the blog, so you can kind of get a preview of what the book looks like before you actually buy it. Okay, so let's get to our guest. Our guest today is Lauren Sapala. She is an author. She's wrote several different books. One of them is the INFJ Writer, Firefly Magic, and the INFJ Revolution. She's also a writing coach for writers who are INFJ and INFP personality type, and she blogs about writing, creativity, and personality theory on her blog at laurensapala.com. Just as a reminder, you can watch the video for this interview at youtube.com/thequietonespodcast, and you can check out some special bonus episodes on youtube.com/INFJwoman. Tell me, how did you find out that you were an INFJ?
Well, this isn't the most glamorous way to find out, I guess. I had a really boring job. Like, I was the receptionist at a startup company, and basically all I did was sit there and sign for packages. So this was summer of 2010, and I was just all over the internet because I was so bored every day. And I started taking personality type tests, Big Five and all that. And I took the Myers-Briggs, and I had taken it before, and I hear this so frequently from my clients. They're like, I took it years ago and just didn't care. And for some reason, this time it really triggered me and it really stuck. And the same thing happened to me. This time, like it really hit me. And I read the description and I was like, oh my God, this is me. And this explains so much about my life.
That's funny because I had the same kind of experience too. I took it when I was in college because it was required. And I was studying engineering at the time, and it was like an intro to engineering class. And I'm like, why do we need to know our personality type? That's completely ridiculous. And I was so overwhelmed with everything else that I had going on and it was a printed out paper too, which was different even back then because everything was like on the computer. It was like transitioning to being on the computer. So for me to have a printed out paper, I was like, I don't know what to do with this. And so I just kind of threw it in a box. And then, years later, I was going through this massive life crisis and somehow I stumbled upon the paper again. And I'm like, oh, maybe this is something. Let me look at this. Let me really start researching this. So
Yeah.
maybe that's part of it too. Like it only means something to us when we're going through something in our lives. And, being in a boring job, for me has made so much of a difference so many different times too.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if it's just like I have all this time and I can't just sit here, so what am I doing? And sometimes it's like this existential crisis, like what am I doing with my life? And other times it's like I just need a project. I have to do something. Let me research something. Let me do something. So did it make any big change like the second time around? Was there anything that changed?
Well, it did and it didn't. I had that lightning bolt moment where I was like, oh, I'm different and this is why, and I'm not just weird. And I'd always sort of struggled my entire life knowing I was different, but not being able to put my finger on it really, like knowing other people were different from me, but not understanding why. And when I took the test, I realized I actually have fundamentally different values than a lot of people, which made sense why I didn't fit into competitive culture. Like I never cared about the promotion or the status or driving a Mercedes. Like that kind of stuff just never mattered to me. So that part made sense. And then I just got more and more into it where I started researching, every single type and the function stack and what it all meant. And then down the road, a few years later, I started my blog and then I started coaching people. And the people I was coaching, they were all like me. They all had the exact same problems with writing. And I was so into personality theory. I'd be like, oh, do you know your type? And they all said, well, I'm an INFJ or I'm an INFP. And that's when I saw the pattern. And that's when everything began coming together. That was like the thunderous lightning bolt, from God, where I was like, oh my God, it's a pattern. We all write the same way. So that's when it started to make the really big difference was, probably 2013.
Yeah. So how did you go from being a receptionist to being a writing coach?
Oh my gosh, I did it all at work. And I always urge my clients, this is maybe horrible of me, but I say, if you have a boring job, work on the side. That's what I did. I did it for 9 years. I was a receptionist for 9 years. And the whole time I was at work, I was working on my blog, I was working on my website. I was, working on my books. I would just write fiction at work. I was editing. I was revising. I would go out to my car at my lunch break and take client calls, or I would dip out in the morning and be like, oh, I have to run errands. And I would go take a coaching call. But I just fit it in here and there. And I really liked it. I found that I really, really liked it. And the writing coaching I was doing, I started out sort of like being an editor, and it just naturally transformed to what I am now, which is kind of like a life coach and kind of like an energy work person for creative people. I still go by writing coach, but all my clients are INFJ and INFP people. And we work on everything. Like we work on childhood stuff and trauma and your energy field now and, where you want to go in life and the writing. So it all just naturally evolved. I didn't plan any of it. Again, that's weird for an INFJ to say. I didn't plan any of it, but I really didn't.
No, it sounds like so familiar. So incredibly familiar, honestly. I've done the same thing. I wanted to start writing and I had this job where they wouldn't let me do anything. So I'm like, okay, I'm not just going to sit here. I'm not the type of person. And I guess I have been in the past, because I had a job, um, close to 10 years ago, where we had times where we wouldn't do anything. And I sat there and I watched Grey's Anatomy all day long. And, I have every single season of it, and I've seen it 10 times. And when that happened again, when I got into this job where it's like, okay, there's nothing for you to do, but you still have to sit here. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that again. So what am I going to do? Like, I have to do something productive, something better. So yeah, it makes such a huge difference too. I mean, when you have something that feels like your purpose, like a goal. Do you know who Kathy Heller is?
No, I haven't heard of her.
She has this podcast called Don't Keep Your Day Job. It has like 10 million downloads. You should definitely listen to it. She's really awesome. But she says that the opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's purpose. And I really feel like that's so completely true.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree.
So a lot of career advice for INFJs says that INFJs should be writers. And I know that when I was looking for a career the first time around, because I've been in that position multiple times now, I saw that and I'm like, I don't want to be a writer. I don't know what to write. I don't know how to write. In fact, I was always a lot better at math when I was in high school and college than I was at English. So when I read that, I was like, oh, that's terrible. I don't want to be a writer. And I just kind of completely ignored it. But then I've always also, at the same time, like this total contradiction, I've always wanted to write something, but I guess maybe it was kind of a, I can't do that because I don't know how type of thing. But then it turns out that I am a writer because I'm writing a book. and I write a blog that I've had for almost a year and a half now as well. But do you think that every single INFJ is meant to be a writer, whether we're good at writing or not? Or maybe it's just like a way that we deal with everything that's going on in our heads?
Well, I think it's important to realize there are a lot of different kinds of writers, and there's a lot of different kinds of writing. And we forget that a lot of the time. Going into, say, like journalism is totally different than writing horror novels like Stephen King, which is totally different than writing self-published self-help books like I do, which is totally different than writing, a newspaper like it could go on and on and on. But some areas of writing, like journalism, it's very rational, it's very competitive. There's going to be a lot of critique, there's going to be a lot of collaboration, you're going to get constant feedback. Same thing if you're like, I want to write screenplays in Hollywood. That's a whole different reality. That reality is, it's very competitive. A lot of people are going to be giving you critique. You might not be interested in that kind of reality as a writer. You might be more interested in, I want to write my fantasy novel and then I want to put it on Amazon, and I don't really care if anyone likes it. I don't care if it's a bestseller. It's for me. It brings me joy. I want to build this world and then offer it out. And if people like it, they like it. If one person reads it and it touches them, great. So it's all about what is meaningful to you and what you're really going for, what's important to you. If you're like, it's really important to me to win the Pulitzer Prize, it just is. Like that, I'm convinced that's going to make me happy. I won't rest. Then go for it. Like go into journalism. If you're like, I really don't care about awards, I really don't care if I'm a bestseller, write for you. If you publish it, cool. If you don't publish it, no big deal. It might just be that journaling is your thing. I know a lot of INFJs who are like, I don't ever want to write anything with structure or story. I just love to journal every day. That's my outlet. I do encourage INFJs to try writing in different forms and see what pulls you. Don't force yourself to do it. I also know INFJs who really get perfectionistic about journaling. Like they'll get a hold of the artist's way and they're like, I have to do it every morning. I have to wake up at 4 a.m. It's boot camp, And I'm like, it's not. It's a journaling, But just try different things and see what pulls you and see what nourishes you. That's what writing is about. I think so much of the time we use it to beat ourselves up.
Yeah. Yes, it's difficult to get to not get stuck in the perfectionism. Because even just for me with my journal, I wanted to have one of those bullet journals that you see, you know, that are super fancy and look totally awesome. And I tried really hard and it just didn't work. And I even bought like all the expensive supplies and everything. And what I end up writing in is one of these that I sort of fancied up, but it's like one of those things that you get for school that's like $1 at Walmart. And the only reason that I'm okay with writing it is because it was $1. It's like, you know, it's not fancy or expensive. So if I mess it up, it's like, I messed it up. It's not that big of a deal. So how do you get past the whole perfectionism thing, especially in your writing? Because that's like a really big thing. Especially it was for me when I'm like, okay, I'm not a writer. I can't spell. I don't know anything about sentence structure. It's difficult.
It is. I mean, what I work on with my clients, perfectionism, it's ultimately about control. And INFJs are very controlling people. And we don't often think of ourselves as controlling because we are also people pleasers. So it's this weird mix of like, we're always trying to keep the peace, we're always trying to keep the harmony. I don't care what restaurant we go to for lunch, wherever you want to go. You know, we're very fluid like that. But at the same time, we almost always have high anxiety because we're always dealing with big energetic onslaughts from the environment and other people. We normally don't have a whole lot of people we can confide in. We tend to feel very isolated and like weirdos. So we kind of have a lone wolf thing going on a lot of the time. A lot of us are unfulfilled creatives. So we have this like toxic brew cocktail of anxiety going on, and that breeds control. And on top of that, we forecast the future. That is our happy place. When we think about how is everything going to play out? Let me look at the patterns I see, follow them to the end. How does the future unfold? We love that. So we're always trying to anticipate the future and nail it down. Well, if I just do it in this way and I just follow this program, and that sort of self-soothes that anxiety. But with writing, you know, that's why if you are like, okay, I'm going to journal every single day for a year and I'm going to do it at 5 a.m. every morning, you could actually probably do that. You might be tired, but you could do that. If you're trying to write a novel or you're trying to write your memoir, you're trying to write a big, deep work that means a lot to you, that you have a lot of heart investment in, that your soul is going to surface as this work is being done, you're going to go into territory where you don't have very much control. And that's where INFJs freak out. And they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. And then they try to clamp down even harder on the control mechanisms. Well, I'll just get even more rigid about my writing schedule. I'll just get even more stifling about how many words I need to write every day. I'll just plan the book out to every detail. And then we get frozen, and then we're completely crippled and we can't move forward at all. So to break through that, we've got to let go of our control, you know, and it doesn't always have to be in writing. It can be in all areas of your life, you know, eating something new, going somewhere new, booking a vacation somewhere you've never been before, starting a relationship with someone that you're maybe a little unsure about, you know, initiating something. Those types of new experiences where we are out of control and we cannot entirely predict the outcome, it's sort of like we engage our extroverted sensing. And that helps, you know, our extroverted sensing, we're at like the level of a 3 or 4-year-old with that. So even finger painting can help, getting messy, you know, getting unplanned, unpredictable. That can really help perfectionism loosen the hooks that it has into us.
Do you think that's why we were saying that sometimes we're just more go with the flow, less planned? Do you think that's why we're like that? Because I've kind of went back and forth with maybe I'm an INFP, but no, it has to be J because of the whole planning thing. But sometimes, like, I'll move across the country. I'm not joking. I've done that twice with very little plans. And it's just like, I want every single thing in my life to be structured and planned, and I want to do the same thing every single day until I don't. And then it's like, I want to do every single thing new. I want to go to someplace I've never been. I want to move to someplace I've never been before and experience everything new. And I've spoken to a couple of INFJs who've told me that they've done the same thing. And it usually comes like one of my friends did it when she got divorced. She was like, everything's going to be new. I'm going to try everything new. It happened to me after I got laid off. And then it happened before when I had some difficulties with a job. So do you think that's part of it? Is that maybe we're more in touch with our extroverted sensing?
No, I actually think the planning, I don't think the planning's a little bit part of the J function. I think it really is a reaction to the anxiety, though. I think most INFJs are so highly anxious, and that's the way we use the J to self-soothe our anxiety by bringing in the planning and organization. And the going with the flow, it's not that like we're actually that whimsical or that we're that spontaneous like an INFP where we're like, oh, there's so many different options. Let me just dance around with all of them. No, it's that we're trying to keep the harmony. On our own, we have definite preferences. When you introduce a second person into it, we will chameleon to make them happy. And I think a lot of INFJs feel bad about that. Like, we feel weird that we're such chameleons, but that is the way we are wired. That is the way we are most ourselves, is to preserve harmony. INFPs, on the other hand, they can get very stubborn. If an INFP, if their feelings are clashed with their personal feelings on a subject, they can get very resistant and very rebellious and loud. INFJs, not so much. We'll just like, let me keep peace in the moment, and then I'm going to quietly go off and kind of sneakily do what I want to do anyway. And I just won't mention it to the person, and they won't get upset. We're like a little bit more deceptive. We can bring in that deceptive part of us of like, I just want to keep the peace.
Right.
So I'll hide things. INFPs are much more like, that's wrong, and that clashes with my values, and I'm going to let you know it. So it is really, I don't think it's such a PJ thing. I think it's an extroverted, introverted feeling thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense as to why some people don't really know who we are, because it's like, we've just agreed with what they're saying and we just keep agreeing with it when we're actually, without telling them, going to do something else. And then years go by and all of a sudden you're this totally different person and they don't know. And it's like, how do you match those two things up? And so many people have asked me that, and I'm like, in my experience, you either continue to go along or you tell them that you're somebody else. And when you tell them that you're somebody else, this is a really big risk of them saying, yeah, that's not what I thought, and I'm not interested anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which is difficult.
Yeah. That's a really big pitfall for INFJs, is that we will go along, and then underneath the surface, things are festering. And then one day we're like, I'm out of here. You don't understand me. You haven't understood me for 20 years. And the person's like, what happened? What, 20 years? What's going on?
Right? They're like, I had no clue that anything was going on. I ran into a situation, honestly, with a landlord that I had last year. And I did the same thing. I just went along with what she said and went along. And even though she was breaking a bunch of laws and it was bothering me, and finally I just got to the point where I was like, I'm leaving because you broke the lease and here's what you did. And she was like, I don't even know you at all. And I'm like, well, no, actually, you really don't.
Yeah.
But I'm still leaving.
Yeah, INFJs hide a lot. We have almost, not two people, but we have two parts of us where that extroverted feeling part is very plugged into people, especially our loved ones. And we live to make them happy. We live to please them. But then the intuition, our introverted intuition and introverted thinking are very independent. And that's kept way down deep inside. And we don't really share that with other people. We don't see the need to. Sometimes we get lonely, but then we just kind of go back to the thing we were trying to put together, the puzzle or the pattern. And it doesn't matter so much. So we do keep large parts of ourselves very deep inside.
So how do you get past that? A lot of people calling it like you're being your authentic self. I wrote a blog post about it, about like being fake. And then a different blog post, I was talking about being manipulative, because it's almost like we are being manipulative, and not like in a bad way. And a lot of times not in an intentional way. but that's just really honestly what it is. When you break it down, that's what we're doing. But how do you get past that, where you really share your real self from the beginning so that you don't run into that problem?
Well, that's the thing. I think you have to back up and look at the self-judgment piece. Is it a problem? If someone is like, I feel like no one in my life knows me, and I'm terrified of sharing parts of myself. I feel very lonely. I feel disconnected. I desperately want a, girlfriend or boyfriend, and I can't make that connection, and I hate my life. Then it's a problem. If you're like for me, it's not a problem. I Parts of myself are deceptive, and that is when I'm being most myself. So I'm very different around my husband than I am with a client, than I am with my best friend. My husband's an INTJ, my best friend's an ENFJ. I'm very different when I'm with either one of them. And I don't like being with the both of them at the same time, because then I feel very pulled, because I can't, when I'm with my husband, I'm much more logical and thinking. When I'm with my ENFJ friend, I'm much more emotional and warm. Both of those versions of me are the real me, but there's many different me's. There's many different facets. And I don't think you have to, with every person be like, I'm 100% real and myself right out of the gate with everybody. Like, if that really means a lot to you, if you're like, yeah, I've thought about it, that's how I want to live my life, it's an important value, cool. If you're like, honestly, my life's not that bad, I'm pretty happy, and sometimes I'm like an ENFJ, and sometimes I'm like an INTJ, and it all shakes out in the end, then you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to sit and beat yourself up that that you're not being authentic or you're being manipulative.
Right. Yeah, I like that answer. I haven't heard an answer like that before. But that makes so much more sense, though, because I think I have spent a lot of time beating myself up and trying to figure out what the answer is. And it's like, this is what feels natural. And I think at times that it is a problem. But at other times, it's like, the people at work, I don't really know them that well, and I don't plan on knowing them that well, because that's just who they are. And it's totally fine if they know a different version of me than my friends, because I'm probably never going to see them together.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go back to something that you said before. When you were talking about planning, like our happy place is almost like fortune telling. And we love thinking about the future and figuring out patterns and trying to figure out how things are going to happen. How do you deal with the disappointment when it doesn't happen the way that you think that it should?
Well, that's actually that's attachment to outcome, and that is something every single human being has to work with, even people who are not INFJs. As humans, we live, especially in Western culture, we live up in our brain, and our brain is convinced it's so smart and it can see everything and it's so right. And we get really attached to the way things should look. And this is like 90% of human misery, is that you thought marriage should look like this. Your marriage doesn't look like what you thought it should. You thought being a parent was going to look like this. Guess what? It doesn't look like that. You think like your book should look like this, your body should look like this, your home should look like it goes on and on and on. So the constant practice is to see what is and to accept what is. That doesn't mean you have to be happy about it. That doesn't mean you have to do gratitude exercises out the wazoo every single day. I think there's a lot of that gets pushed on us, like, be happy and grateful and positive for what you have. Like, sometimes you're just legitimately unhappy. You're like, yeah, I'm not happy in my relationship. Like, I want to dump my boyfriend and I can't do it right now because we live together and I can't afford rent. This sucks. Like, that happens,
Yeah.
That's okay. But just seeing what it is and saying, okay, this is the situation right now, and I can accept it right now. It's not how I pictured my life, out of college looking. It's not how I pictured my life as a person in a relationship looking, but it is what it is. So how can I work with it as it is right now? And that's gonna be an ongoing practice. Attachment to outcome, that's something human beings will do over and over and over again. You will always get attached to outcomes. And most of the time for INFJs, this will manifest in attachment to other people's outcomes, which is really not helpful when we really think that they should be doing things this way. I mean, we're the counselor, we can see like, oh, they're self-destructive. If they just put down that addiction, things would be better. I can help them. You can hold space for them. You can support them. But the more you attach to someone else's outcome, they feel you on them energetically. And then they're like, get off me. Same thing in any outcome. The more you attach to how you want something to play out in the future, the less possibility it's going to happen. Because it's like you're sucking all the air out of the room. You're just gripping on. It has to happen in this way, or I won't have it you're not letting the universe have any room to come in and play. And be like, well, I know you thought you wanted a red pair of shoes, but actually I'm going to give you a pair of black boots. You'll love them much better. We don't really give that trust or that room for creativity to come in and play around.
Yeah. Yes. I've had such a huge expectation around simple things like Christmas. And like, you see all these Hallmark movies and you see everybody else's experience on Instagram and Facebook, and you're like, oh, that's how it's supposed to be, right? And then you look at that with reality and you're like, yeah, that's not how it is for me. And so Christmas has always been like this huge disappointment for me, because every year I think, okay, it's going to be different this year, or I put the expectation that next year it'll be different because it's really bad this year. So this past Christmas, I was like, you know what? It's not going to be great. That's just what it is. It's not going to look like it does in the movies, and that's fine because that's what it always looks like. So why am I expecting something different? And it was still sucky, but it was like, okay, I've accepted the fact that that's what it's going to be. And I was really okay with it, because it was like, it was almost like I was giving myself permission to feel bad that it wasn't what I wanted. And I was trying to explain that to my niece, who's about 16. With some of the people in her life, I'm like, you're expecting too much from them. That's the problem. And if you stop expecting that, because they've showed you over and over and over again, they're not going to do what you want them to do or what you think that they should do, then you won't feel so bad when they disappoint you. And she's like, I don't understand what you're saying. But hopefully she will understand it one day, because like it still stinks, that it doesn't turn out the way that you want it to, but it feels a lot better at the same time, because it's like, okay, I don't have to worry about the outcome really, or I've already accepted the fact that it's not going to be what I think that it should be. And that's okay.
Well, I think it can help too for INFJs to shift in our society with this big idea of happiness. If we can shift away from, happiness into, is this interesting or not? So we get this idea of like with Christmas, like you said, the Hallmark movie, and happiness is this beautifully decorated tree, and Candace Cameron is handing out gifts around it, and the whole family is there, and it's snowing. That's an idea, an imaginary scenario that we've attached to in our head, like that's happiness. And we're sitting on this like beat down couch with our Uncle Lester, who's drunk and like kind of racist, and he won't stop talking to us. He's kind of like spitting because he's drunk. And we're like, this sucks. Like, this is not the White Christmas with Candace Cameron on the Hallmark Channel.
Right.
We can let go of the happiness and say, okay, but is there something interesting here? Like, is Uncle Lester, he's annoying, but is there anything interesting about this experience? Like, am I learning something from it? Is he just being like kind of weird and absurd and funny? Could I maybe write a story about it later? Like, is there anything else in the room that's interesting? Like, if we can go into like, is there something interesting here for me? That can really go a long way. And sometimes there won't be. Sometimes you're like, no, there's absolutely nothing interesting, just getting through it. And that's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to writing a little bit. And one of the big things that kind of ties into this too is putting yourself out there. Because we have this big expectation of what it does look like, and what it could look like. And sometimes it's like all we see is the negative and we never see anything positive. but really there's just a lot of anxiety around it. So how do you get past that anxiety?
Mm. I love, you're like, what's the magic bullet?
Right.
So when you create anything, any sort of creative work, and you put it out into the world, a very similar thing is going to happen is when you get into it, like a romantic relationship with someone. You have this idea of how it's supposed to go, and you have this idea that it's going to fulfill you in this very specific way. And usually, unconsciously, we are feeling that whatever we didn't get in childhood, however our mom didn't love us or our dad didn't pay attention to us, whatever lack or void we felt there, we were not loved in the way we thought we should be loved. By finding that romantic partner or putting this creative work out into the world, that's going to be fixed. Like this partner or this book or whatever it is you put out there, that's going to fix that issue for you. It's going to give you those feelings you never got back then. You're going to feel loved. You're going to feel paid attention to. You're going to feel approved of. You're going to feel validated. Self-esteem's going to go up. None of that stuff happens. Absolutely none of that stuff happens. Instead, what happens if you've picked the right partner for a growth experience, and creative work is always a growth experience, these experiences, they're going to challenge you. They're going to trigger all your shit. All your stuff's going to come up. If you always had low self-esteem and you felt like your mom never loved you, that's going to really come up once you hit publish on Amazon. You know, if you feel like your dad, would only have loved you if you had been a better student and you'd done everything perfect, that's going to come up when you hit publish on that blog post. And then you're going to have to work through those things. Some people don't work through those things. They just get on the hamster wheel of like, oh, that's funny. I published something and I still feel like crap. It wasn't good enough. Let me make another one. Let me make it more perfect. But it's just going to keep cycling through and happening until you sit and unpack, what am I asking this book to do for me? What am I asking this blog to do for me? I'm asking it to deliver all of these feelings I never got before. Once you can let go of that and you're like, you know what? It doesn't need to deliver anything. It doesn't need to gain me anyone's approval. It's just out there. And it feels weird that it's out there. I feel anxious about it. I feel exposed. I feel really vulnerable. I kind of feel depressed. I kind of hate that I feel all of these things. The feelings will start moving through. And then I don't want to say you'll get over it, but it'll get better. And then every time you put something out, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's happening again. Like I'm getting really anxious and I'm checking social media a bunch to see how many likes I got on it. I hate that I do that. I've been doing this for years and years and years now, and I still get weird on publish day. I don't get weird about blog posts anymore. But I definitely get weird when I publish books. Like that whole day, I feel just nauseous and icky and weird. It's just part of the cycle.
Yeah. I hired a business coach last summer because I wasn't making any money and I didn't know why and I couldn't figure it out. And she basically promised me that she had the answer. Like she could show me how to make money. And I'm like, cool, great, let's do that. So we start coaching, and like the first thing she wants to talk about is my family and emotions and the past. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about money. And she's like, well, this is the problem. And I really feel like there's a big problem here because, it shows up in so many different places. And I'm like, I was not on a journey to learn about psychology and repressed childhood trauma. I was on, I was trying to run a business, and it's helped me honestly to learn so much about myself and my past, and even more about my personality than I ever thought that I wanted to know. It's crazy how much all of it is connected, and it's one of those things too, right, where we're always looking for connections and looking for the why behind what we're doing and how it fits in with the future. And it's almost one of those things that's like too big for me to even wrap my head around, but then at the same time it's like I had a lot of questions for a long time, And then I finally found the answers, and all of the dots are connecting, and it's, you know, one of those big aha moments. And I'm like, wow, I wish that I would have understood this when I was 20 years old rather than 35.
Mhm. Well, the thing is, in our culture, we're taught from day one that our purpose here on earth is to achieve, accomplish, and be a success. And if you really go into that programming, and I was on that programming for many years, you will go insane because you will never reach the end. You will never get to the point where you feel like you've accomplished, achieved, and are a success. It's a complete illusion. The true purpose of why we are here is to grow and learn. And if you shift into that reality of like, oh, I'm here to grow and learn, you're always sane because you're always doing it. You're like, well, I'm definitely doing that. Like, I might be a total mess and just crying all over myself and shoving cookies in my face, but I'm growing and learning. God damn it. I'm doing okay.
Right.
It's a totally different vibe, a totally different energy to be in.
Yeah. I was just going through just the other day, my niece who's 16, she's an INTP, and she's just as obsessed with personality types as I am. And we were just going through the functions of personality types just the other night. And she was having as many aha moments as I was. And one of the big things that really struck me was like, as INFJs, we really struggle to figure out what our purpose is. And it's like at that time of adolescence is like the worst time for us to be thinking about something like that, because we're in this massively confused state at that time. And part of the reason that I was thinking about that and trying to talk to her about it is because she's 16 and she's in that space, even though she has a different personality type, though she's still in that space. And I remember so clearly what it was like to be in that space. And I'm trying to tell her, you know, you shouldn't put so much pressure on yourself at that age. You shouldn't put so much pressure on just one career to be your whole life's purpose and to provide enough money, not only for you to live, but to pay off your loans. And I was like, study philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
study Chinese culture, study something that nobody can major in, or that, you know, you can't make a real career out of, or it's really hard to, because college shouldn't be about really achievement. It should be about learning about who you are. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you did that in college, then it would be so much easier to figure out how you want to make money, or, you know, what you want to do, and then be able to transition that into, hey, can I make money off of this? Which, you know, the answer is probably yes.
Oh,
But
I have so many clients who are in their 40s now, and they're undoing years of going down the wrong path. I've talked to a lot of INFJ and INFP accountants where they're like, I hated accounting, but my dad said it was practical. So I have 25 years in accounting. And now they're like, and I hate accounting. I don't want to do this. So yeah, if they had really just gone for philosophy, you know, they would have found out more about themselves earlier and been able to follow their heart's desire earlier.
yeah, yes. I'm definitely preaching to my niece about that. Since she has, you know, a thinking personality, she's like, well, that doesn't sound practical. Like, that doesn't make sense. That's not logical. I'm like, no, trust me. In the long run, it really, really, really is. um, I want to go back to one of the biggest things that we deal with too when we're talking about putting ourselves out there, doing something different, especially in an artistic space, where we're not used to being in that space. How do you deal with imposter syndrome? Like looking at everybody else's writing and going, oh, that's so great, but I can't write like that. It's not going to look like that for me.
Well, this goes back to getting off the achievement accomplishment programming. So when you're on the achievement accomplishment programming, there are levels of people. There's good, bad, better, everybody's rated, and you have this feeling that you need to be an expert. And imposter syndrome, it's really about you kind of like ricocheting back and forth between arrogance and self-deprecation. Both are out of balance. Both are normal human traits, by the way. We are all arrogant. We are all self-deprecating. We tend to really beat ourselves up for either. They're normal human traits. They get out of balance. Imposter syndrome is feeling like there are a bunch of levels and there are a bunch of people above you and you're down here, but you're sort of giving the impression you should be up here. Like you're like jumping the hierarchy and that's not right. You're faking your way through it. The most helpful thing can be to work with your own humanity and see the humanity in others. Other people are not experts. They aren't. I mean, okay, relatively, some people are. Some people know a whole lot about operating on the brain. They're brain surgeons. Cool, I get that, you know. But for the most part, most of what people are saying, they're experts. They're just their opinions. They're just stuff they've studied and stuff they've observed, and they've concluded some opinions about it. Like people email me all the time, like I'm the expert, and I'm like I'm a total spaz. Like I'm just into all this weird shit. I read a bunch about it, and then I'm like, I think it's like this, and people are like, the expert has spoken. It's like, no, I'm just some chick sitting in her bedroom in San Francisco, like this tiny bedroom in a shoebox apartment, typing some stuff up because that's what I think. That's how it is. Everyone's just talking about what they think. And so it's seeing the humanity in everyone. Everyone's scared. Everyone's anxious. Everyone has daddy problems or mommy problems, you know, issues. Everyone feels weird about some part of their body. Like, you know, that's really what it is. There are no experts. And it's impossible to be an imposter. You're not trying to be this expert. You just have to be you. You really just have to be you with all of your flaws and all of your weird baggage. That's what people are going to connect to. When you're the expert on the pedestal and you have an answer for everything, not very many people connect with that. Or the people who do have like really serious problems, like they want to be in a cult and follow a cult leader. And those are the people that you're looking to connect with, you know,
Right.
People who genuinely want to form real reciprocal relationships. They want to know about your baggage because they have baggage too. You know, maybe your guys' baggage is in alignment with each other.
Yeah.
So that's the best I can say is like, you're just an ordinary person. So is everyone else. Every single person on earth is just an ordinary person, no matter who they are.
Yes. One of my favorite bloggers from like 10 years ago, honestly, I was following her blog, and she wrote about things like depression and anxiety and eating disorders. And I like talking about that stuff too, because I deal with a lot of that stuff. And my mom asked me one time, she's like, you don't tell people that you have depression, do you? And I'm like, yeah, of course I do. Of course I do. Like, why would I not? I want to share my experience so that there's somebody out there can say, oh my God, I have the same experience and that's normal. You know, it's like, I'm not weird. I'm not the only person here who's dealing with that. And I feel like that's so much better than being perfect. It's just being real, because it's that connection, that me too, that makes such a huge difference, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially for us, because we feel like we're all alone to begin with. And then when you just see that one other person feels the same way that you do, it makes a huge difference.
Well, and you regain so much energy because your relationships are so much easier. When you put all of your weird stuff out first, you don't have to filter through a lot of people. They're filtered for you, you know? Only the really, really like compatible people show up. And then you have a lot in common with them. You really click. The relationship takes a lot less work.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. So tell us about what kind of coaching that you do. What does it look like? And where do we find you?
Oh my gosh. I'm a really weird coach. Like I will say that right out of the gate. I'm a really weird coach. I don't coach based from like masculine energy. So I'm not like, here are your assignments. We have an agenda. Let's get your goal list down. You know, what do you want to shoot for? Who do you want to be in 5 years? I don't do any of that crap. Not to say by me saying any of that crap, it sounds condescending, but like that's a very masculine approach. And I think most coaches are like that. They're like sports coaches, you know, let's whip you into shape. I coach from feminine energy. So I really just ask questions and feel around in people's energy fields and pull stuff out. And I'm like, I'm seeing this. I'm getting this. I'm getting a hit on this. Does this resonate with you? I'm seeing this, and I just kind of tweak stuff energetically for people. It's a really weird thing. It feels just like an hour of talking. Some people only talk about their book that they're writing. Some people only talk about their relationship that they're going through. You know, some people only talk about their eating disorder or their depression. Whatever is going on for them, that's what we talk about. And something always shifts. There's always a shift and there's always work being done, but it doesn't always manifest as like an assignment or a goal or an agenda or anything like that. And my coaching is really casual. Like I just tell people, I'm like, yeah, email me when you want to schedule and we'll put you on the calendar. And I do PayPal. Like people always like, this is so informal. I'm like, yeah, I just talk to people on the phone or I talk to people over Zoom. Some people cry the whole hour. They just sit and cry. They might talk a little, but they just need to cry. Other people never cry. So it depends on the person. But I work with all sorts of different people. I know that's a really weird answer also.
No, but it sounds really awesome too, because it's like there is no expectation really. It's just learning and growing and shifting, which, it's such a big thing. And some of my biggest shifts have come from such weird experiences too. Like the landlord I was telling you about. It was me conveying that whole thing to one of my friends going, oh my goodness, can you believe how, like, look at this lady. Can you believe that she did this? And my friend is going, yeah, it's you. You did that. That was you from the beginning. And I'm like, why are you being so mean to me? And she goes, you do that with everybody. You do that with all of your friends. How do you not notice this?
Yeah.
Was like, oh, this is like this massive aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
Now every time I'm going through something like that I want to go talk to her and see what her opinion is. And instead of, feeling mean and like feeling like she's being mean to me and insulted, it's like, okay, I'm taking notes. Like, what do you really think here? Because obviously you can see things a little bit differently than I can. And I'm excited to learn what's the next thing, because, once you have one of those big shifts, then it's like, okay, I have this whole list of other things that I've been trying to figure out. So can you help me figure them out? Because I really want to know. So yeah, that sounds completely amazing, honestly. Tell us where we can find you, your website and your social media.
Oh yeah, my website's just my name. It's Lauren Sapala, LaurenSapala.com. I'm on Twitter. I used to be on Twitter quite a bit. I'm not so much now with everything that's going on with the pandemic. I'm trying to lessen the social media. But my email, WriteCitySF, WriteCitySF @gmail. And I have a contact form on my website too. I do try to answer every email. I get kind of inundated with email, so it's probably like a few days, but I will get back to you. Even if you're just like, I just wanted to say hi, and I like weird things too, I'll email you back. Oh, you know what? I should tell people, jump on my email list because I give away a free copy of my marketing book, Firefly Magic. Like the whole thing, if you just sign up for my email list. It's right on the first page of my website, right over in the sidebar. So jump on my email list because I've been doing a lot of live classes and video courses that are all for INFJs, INFPs, creative, intuitive people, whatnot. But yeah, get a free copy of that book because I sell it on Amazon, but you can get it totally free if you just sign up for my email list.
All right, here's some takeaways from the interview. Number 1, not all INFJs have to be writers, but a lot of us are. There are multiple kinds of writers as well, everything from writing marketing copy to novels and journaling. Number 2, give writing a try, but be careful not to get stuck in perfectionism. Number 3, INFJs are very controlling, even though we don't often realize it. It's generally a coping mechanism for our anxiety. Number 4, engaging our extroverted sensing by doing something new or messy will help us get through our need for control and perfectionism. Number 5, INFJs have definite preferences while they are on their own, but will be more go with the flow when there's someone else around. There's nothing wrong with doing this. It's actually where we are most ourselves. Number 6, INFJs hide a lot from our loved ones. We live to please them, but we still want to do our own thing. We keep a large part of ourselves hidden deep inside. Number 7, INFJs are good at being deceptive, but that doesn't always mean it's a problem. We are very different around different people in our lives. It's only a problem if it feels like a problem to you. Number 8, a lot of times we get stuck in the idea that we should be happy. If we can shift to asking if there's something interesting, we'll have a whole different perspective. Number 9, we put a lot of expectations on the work we put out into the world through our writing. It's important to work through all of the emotions that come up in that process. And number 10, the true purpose of why we're here is to grow and learn. All right, that's all we have for today. Remember, you can find all the links for the show notes on my website, which is thequietonespodcast.com. Thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. Also, remember, as a reminder, you can watch the video interview at youtube.com/thequietonespodcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.